Welcome to Let's Talk Context Live. This is episode 9. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Ethleen. I want to give a huge shout out to one of our online friends, Liz, for the recommendation to watch Madam C.J. Walker. So I watched the miniseries last night on Netflix, and you were totally right. I loved it. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And for those of you who don't know, I went to an HBCU, a historically black college university. And so I'm familiar with Madam C.J. Walker and the story of her life. But watching the miniseries yesterday, I learned some things that I had never learned in the classroom. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that one of the topics that came up that I kept thinking about was just this whole idea of ambition. Is there such a thing as having too much ambition or being too ambitious? So I'd be curious to find out what you all think about that, this whole notion of being someone who wants it all. You know, you're always looking for more. You're always trying to pursue more. Because I think one of the things that I saw in the miniseries about Madam C.J. Walker was she had huge dreams. It wasn't enough to just have a little salon or have some products that she was able to sell in her community to make a couple dollars, to keep a roof over her head. She aspired to do great things, and she became a self-made millionaire. And it's insane that she did all of that basically on her own, and she was just so driven. So I'd be curious to know if there is anyone in your life who is like that, who always wants more, always desires to do bigger, better things. Maybe you're that person. And so what is that thing that drives you? What keeps you motivated? I'd be so curious to see some answers. So if you want to put it in the chat or in the comments section, answering that question of what motivates you to aspire to greatness? What keeps you driven to try to achieve your goals? So thanks again, Liz, for that recommendation. I totally love the web series, the miniseries, and it was great. So good news, I got a new camera. The camera came earlier this week, so the quality of our live streams will be better, which is awesome. Let's move on to Ask Anything. I'm preparing for the IELTS. Any advice? That's pretty straightforward. So whenever you are tackling standardized tests, whether it's IELTS, TOEFLs, SATs, ACTs, GREs, all these acronyms, my best advice is to be sure to answer the question that's being asked. It's wonderful that you're able to look through a passage and give examples, make a claim, provide supporting evidence, and all of that. But be very cognizant, be very mindful that you answer the question that they want answered. So, because automatically, if you don't give me an answer to the initial question that's being asked, you're not going to get points for it. Especially like the speaking section, right? I tell my clients all the time, this is the formula we will follow for the speaking section. If you have time, you can deviate. You can do more. You can add your extra little flair or what have you. But first and foremost, make sure you answer the question that's being asked. With regards to the reading section, don't focus too much on trying to understand everything. Try to really get the gist of what is being conveyed, what the text is about. With writing, again, there are structures, there are patterns to essay writing that we teach, instructors teach. And so really, instead of trying to cram all of your ideas in at once, organize yourself, create an outline, and make sure that you're hitting the points that they're asking you to hit, that you're making a claim, you're providing supporting evidence for your claim, you're doing all of these things, because that is what's important. For standardized tests, structure and paying attention to the formula of how to do the test, how to take the test, and the strategies and techniques, that's far more important than trying to get everything right. That's a good question. That's a really good question. Okay. This one. People say a little birdie told me, which basically means someone told them something. So someone told you something that maybe was a secret or you weren't meant to know. What is the meaning of you weren't meant to know? So the phrase you weren't meant to know, it means it was not something intended for your hearing. You were not supposed to know. Right. So if my friend Dennis recently had a birthday, and let's say his wife was planning a surprise party for him. He was not meant to know that she was planning the surprise, but because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, I told him. So the intent was that Dennis wouldn't know about the surprise party, and it would be like a legitimate surprise party. So that phrase, you weren't meant to know, it just means you were not intended to know. It wasn't intended for your hearing. So I hope that helps. And the last question, when is the best time to study English? Can you recommend the best method? So questions like these really trip me up. They kind of throw me for a loop. Do you notice all these phrases that I'm throwing in there? And I hope you're understanding based on the context what they mean. So questions like these are difficult to answer because learners are different. The way I study, when is the best time for me to study, is not necessarily what's best for you. So I would say for me, the best time for me to study is either early in the morning. No, not either. It's early in the morning. I was going to say or late at night, but no. But the best time is early in the morning. That's because my brain is fresh. I am like ready to tackle whatever needs to be handled, and I'm not consumed by everything else that I have to do. So when I was writing my book, actually, I would wake up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier, and my brain was super fresh, and all these ideas and thoughts would just come. I didn't know where they were coming from, but they just came. And it felt great because I found that on those days when I woke up super early, by like 12 o'clock, I was done. Like if I had tried to attempt to write at like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I wouldn't have been pleased with what I produced because my brain was just consumed by everything else in my life. So the best time to study is really dependent on you. If you're an early bird, study in the morning. If you are a night owl, study at night. Whenever you believe that you can take in the most information, and not just take it in, but retain it. That's the key, right? Retention. I can read 1,000,000 books, but if I read and I'm not reading with the intent of understanding what I'm reading and comprehending, then, it's pointless. So when is your brain the freshest, and when can you take in and retain as much information as possible? That is the best time for you to study. And then the best method, again, there is no best method per se because it varies from person to person. The best method for me, and it takes forever and I hate it, but I know that that's just how I learn to study and what works. I take copious amounts of notes. I write literally everything down, and it goes back to that whole thing I was saying in a previous episode where there's something about when we write things down, like if we're trying to learn new vocabulary words, when we write those terms down like physically on a piece of paper, we retain it better. And so for me, when I'm writing, even when I wrote my book, the manuscript, oh my God, it was so annoying, super annoying. But I literally wrote the entire thing down in a journal before I typed it. And it's just, I've learned that that's how I best learn, like take in information and do things. So there is no best method. Those are some things that I do, but you can try to play around and kind of see what works for you. It's kind of like a trial and error thing. Thanks for those questions, though. And I'm super glad because more questions are coming in. We're kind of going to stick with just 3 questions an episode, but you're welcome to keep contributing. If you don't hear your question this week, then check back next week or future episodes to hear the answers. But I'm super glad that you're all contributing, or some of you are contributing and engaging. I love it. All right, so let's talk about around the world. So I think this one was very interesting. So I was reading this article on BBC. So yes, I read BBC News a lot. I don't know, it's just something about BBC that I think that they provide quality content. I might be wrong. You might disagree. So the title of the article was Coronavirus Universities Fear Fall in Lucrative Overseas Students, and it was by John T. Bloom. And basically, the article was talking about how with coronavirus basically ruining the world, universities, especially Western English-speaking universities, are feeling it hard because international students have to go home and borders are basically closed. And it's something that is super important because the money that these schools get from international students is a significant amount. So they're losing hundreds and thousands of dollars because of this virus. And the thing is, if you're an international student, either your parents are paying for your tuition, your education here in the U.S. Let's talk about the U.S. because that's what I know. They're paying out of pocket for it, or a company or an organization in your home country is sponsoring you and they're paying for you to come here and study. And so when you have hundreds of thousands of international students no longer coming to study here in the U.S., not paying those abundant fees, then the universities are feeling it really, really hard. So the education sector has been hit hard because international students have been sent home indefinitely. We don't know when the schools are really going to fully reopen. And, everything from dorm life, conferences, everything is being hit by this. So it's been really, really tough. What are the implications of that for globalization? We're talking about, I noticed this week that on Twitter, many of you wanted more business English, more business kind of context and scenarios when we do our English exercises. And so let's talk about it. Globalization. What is the impact of not having international students attend universities here in the U.S.? Because we think about globalization and the borders kind of being open and people coming and going and this exchange of knowledge. So effectively, if schools don't reopen soon, there's going to be a gap. And there's going to be just this missing of this lack of information or knowledge or what have you between people who are have the information to give and those who want the information to give. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just kind of picture it as, before we had all these students coming here to learn so they could go to their home countries to apply what they've learned, and all of a sudden that's been halted. And so we're going to see a period where it could be 1 graduating class, 2 graduating classes. We don't really know how many people will be impacted by this, where there might be just a gap of progress in this country as well as in other countries. I mean, we could really get into this conversation, and if it's a topic that interests you, shoot me an email or DM or write it in the comment section, and we could definitely talk a little bit about it, because I think it's interesting. It's worth having that dialogue to see the impact of globalization, coronavirus's impact on globalization. Okay, and now pronunciation perfection. This one's a doozy, so listen closely. Just a reminder, if you get 4 of these correct, you will be entered to win one of my favorite books. and I have books for beginners, intermediate, and advanced students. So write what you think you heard me say in the comment section of this video to be considered to be entered into the giveaway of the free English resource. You ready? All right. Over the course of 3 weeks, we have had to make life-altering decisions. Despite all the planning efforts that were made, we've ultimately come to the conclusion that the plant must close. Thank you for your unwavering support throughout the years. That's it. Yeah. It kind of sounds like it's a text from maybe like a speech that a CEO would give to thank the workers because the company maybe is no longer going to be in existence, the company's shutting down or something. That's what it reads like. All right, so thanks. That's it for today. Remember to follow us on social media, Twitter, at Speak Right Play, Instagram, at Speak Right Play, Facebook, Speak Right Play English, Patreon, Speak Right Play, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Tons of content. As I said earlier, we're going to be doing some more business English type stuff. It's not going to be like overwhelmingly business English, but we'll definitely incorporate more business English. So if you are into that, if that's where you're kind of wanting to learn more, definitely subscribe, follow, turn your notifications on, because it's going to be great. The content's going to be awesome. One reminder, so our online class, our online persuasive writing class, this cohort is coming to an end. So a new cohort will be beginning, and we'll be advertising and promoting on the platforms. If you missed out on the last cohort on taking part in the class, then definitely listen for the news for when we're going to be registering new students for the next group in a couple weeks. Fun class, awesome, great time. It's business English, academic English, business writing, academic writing. So you learn how to write persuasively, how to persuade people in whatever context you find yourself in. All right, well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.